right, let's talk about this show from this past Wednesday night that made some news and got some talk and some attention. The AEW Dynamite show from Kansas City. And it opened up, they mentioned the Moxley issue, made an announcement about it at the top of the program, and then followed up on it with Punk's promo. Let me say this at the start. I'm going to address it briefly because I can't win. You realize I cannot win, Brian, in this, because if I say what everybody else in the world has said, well, I hope he gets better, I hope he gets the help he needs, treatment, whatever, come blah, 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 anything positive or kind, then I'll have wise ass after wise ass on the internet go, well, see, he didn't have a goddamn good thing to say about his matches, but now he's sucking up or he's trying to be a baby face. Oh, Cornette, he doesn't really mean it. They'll find something wrong with whatever I say. So I will simply say that, yes, I do hope that he gets better and gets the help he needs. And he's got a wife and a baby and a book and a job that he needs to come back to, all of those things. And I hope he does get better and recover and do that. Well, actually, the wife and the baby and the book, maybe I don't know. I'd be offended if he got another line of work, if he could be successful and make the same amount of money somewhere else and I didn't have to watch him wrestle. I don't know if I'd be upset, but otherwise, I'm not wishing him ill here. But they started at the top of the program by announcing, I'm trying to remember the exact verbiage, but we wish Jon Moxley well in his recovery. Recovery was a word they used a couple times. But in this entire television program, they never said recovery from what? Tony Khan announced it on Twitter earlier that day or the day before, whatever it was. But if you're not on Twitter, or if you are like many people in the world and don't live on the internet checking the wrestling news every day, you would have known whether he'd been in a car wreck or had a drastic accident in the ring or broke his leg or whatever from the recovery. And then later on, Punk fleshed it out a little bit, but still didn't come out and say what was going on, which I thought that was the only thing they dropped the ball on necessarily, is not clarifying for the viewer what in the world are they talking about? What has happened to him? Has he been in a car accident or what's gone on? So, I mean, did I miss it? Did you hear anything of that? Or did they just presume and assume that everybody had seen the announcement and already knew?
You know, because I tune out the commentary so often, I didn't hear anything on commentary throughout the night, but I missed the first couple of minutes. I saw the Punk thing, obviously. But it's a tricky situation. They didn't say anything I heard overtly saying what Moxley's problems were at this time. But it's one of those things. Do you come out on TV? Do you say that? Do you ignore it? Well, you know, how do you address it once word is out there somewhat due to, you know, either Tony Khan releasing a tweet or just word getting around?
Well, word is out there somewhat because Tony Khan specifically said, I, with Jon Moxley's approval, am letting you know that. So once we've reached that place, then would it have been out of place for the announcers to say he has entered an alcohol treatment program? That would have, I mean, again, with what Punk said later on, you know, that would have clarified everything. It's not, they've said the same thing on Twitter, so it's not like, oh, we don't want to say this publicly. They said it in a different public forum, but not on their main television program, at least that I heard. I did not hear any specificity on what the recovery was from or whatever, and that they may not have even realized it. They may have just assumed that, well, everybody knows now, so we're just going to refer to it like everybody knows. But I'm not sure that there weren't some people that just they have some kind of casual audience for this program, because it does fluctuate somewhat, especially if there's a big destination thing like Punk's debut or whatever on the show. They do have somewhat of a casual audience that you would think doesn't live and die by everything like most of their their base. So anyway, nevertheless, maybe they thought they covered it and they just assumed that everybody knew from scratch. From scratch, the opening match was Twinkle Toes against Alan Angels. And okay, I thought they're going to bring out, Olivier for the ratings, and this will be quick, and then they'll get into some business or other with his title match. So I thought skipping the match wouldn't take long, because it's not like I'm going to watch or critique or enjoy in any way Twinkle Toes against Alan Angels. But as I'm skipping through, oh my God, it's competitive. Did you watch this match?
I did. And remember, there was a big outcry during the pandemic a while back. Alan Angels wrestled Omega on one of those studio shows they did in Atlanta at QT's gym. And it was an extremely competitive match. It led to Alan Angels getting signed, I believe. And a lot of people had a problem with it because it was so competitive. And I must admit, I forgot. Not that this is a big thing, but I forgot how small Alan Angels was. So we don't really see him wrestle too often. He's smaller than Omega.
Well, I mean, Omega's not a tiny, minute individual. I can knock him for a lot of things, but that's not one of them. But Alan Angels definitely, they announced him at 180. And I think they're taking my advice and boosting some of these weights. But the point is, it was 8:12 p.m. Eastern time before the world's greatest wrestling artist beat a sub 180-pound job guy and got his ass kicked in the process of it. And then got on the microphone as we knew he would, but now because he's done all this goofy shit with his midget, so now he's blown up and it's amplifying his phone sex voice because he has to breathe after every, and he talks like that anyway. So now it's almost like he's going to orgasm. Oh my God. And so he's cutting the promo on Alan Angels, who has disrespected him in whatever fashion, and he asks Michael Knockitoff to give him a chair. And I swear Knockitoff gives Twinkle Toes the chair because he's going to kill Alan Angels. And the corpse ref, Knox, is in the ring standing there motionless with his hands in a bizarre position out like he's fucking, please, sir, may I have some more? Like he's asking for a bowl of gruel. And poor Jim Ross has to say, the referee should seriously consider intervening here, trying to send a signal to the back over his headset. Hey, can anybody with the IFB and on fucking corpse referee's head ask him if he wants to goddamn move or do something? But nobody picked up on it.
He's the worst referee in the entire business.
Well, I mean, that's
unquestionably.
That doesn't even take it into it. It's so much worse than that. He's one of the most feckless human beings. He serves no purpose. I'm not even sure if he's breathing air. Somebody ought to put a mirror up in front of his face, see if it fogs up. But anyway, so while he's standing there, Twinkle Toes going to put the chair underneath Alan Angels. Anyway, a chair on the ground. He's going to give Alan Angels the one-winged fairy onto the chair and kill him dead. Just kill him dead. So he picks Alan Angels up, and he's got him up for the one-winged fairy, and Adam Page's music starts playing. Now, despite the fact that Page is not even visible and is at least 100 feet away from the ring, and despite the fact that Twinkle Toes really wanted to do this to Alan Angels, as soon as that music hits, he stops and puts Alan Angels down on the ground. Then, here comes Adam Page down the aisleway, and he clotheslines Knockitoff, so they get a comedy spot before the top babyface challenging for the world title even gets in the ring. He knocks Knockitoff out and keeps going. And Twinkle Toes has the chair that he's going to hit Page with, but the job guy that Twinkle Toes just beat up and beat and was going to kill jumps up and takes the chair away from him and throws it away and then drops back down selling again. And so Page comes in over the top with the buckshot lariat, but Olivier ducks it and slides out. and Page is in the ring pissed. So he picks up the belt and he puts it back over on the apron and tells him that he's got 10 days until Full Gear to enjoy that belt. There was nothing wrong with the interplay between Harpo and Page here, but did it have to follow a fucking guy the size of an 8th grader carrying the world champion to 10 minutes of one of the hardest matches he's had on television? Or was that counterproductive?
Well, I think it's counterproductive, and I think the argument will always be, oh, well, Ric Flair worked long matches against job guys, or this guy worked long matches against job guys. No, he actually
didn't. He works long matches against George South every once or twice a year on TV whenever the Dusty wrote him down with George South. Otherwise, he didn't work long matches with job guys.
But I agree. It's a counterproductive thing for the world champion to have a competitive match with a guy that looks like shit. I'm sorry. He has really bad tattoos and he's really small. He shouldn't be in a competitive match with the world champion. Other than that and the inclusion of Michael Nakazawa, I don't have any problem with this. I've told you, I like Omega as a heel. You want to make him the world champion, heel champion. Surround him with serious people you want to see get their asses kicked. Don't surround him with Brandon Cutler and Michael Nakazawa. I could even take Don Fallis. I could even take the Cucamonga Kids.
Where is Don Fallis?
Who knows? Maybe he's got scarlet fever again. But the Omega Page stuff, no problem with it. The building to the title. I did have one thought, one question. Do you think, this is kind of awkward, do you think the Moxley stuff played into Adam Page coming out without a drink, or are they done with Adam Page coming out with a drink?
Well, remember when he came out a couple of weeks ago and did the promo that we praised to the heavens as to where have you been all of our lives? This is a main event guy. He's serious. He's talking. He's putting his foot down. He didn't have it. And then the next week he came out with a drink in his hand. It was a beer. It wasn't a whiskey, but he didn't have one here. And you know what? Regardless of what their thought process is, this would be a good place for Adam Page never to come out with a drink in his hand ever again, wouldn't it?
I agree. I completely agree. Drop this whole thing with the drinking and him and just make him a badass cowboy shit babyface that you want to see kick Omega's ass.
There you go. And besides for the optics, as the kids say, for the appearance of it, it's in bad taste. It was stupid to begin with. So, yeah. So poor old Hangman can go back to being a regular wrestler instead of a sad, morose drinker. Anyway, Malachi Black did another dark, spooky promo. He has been barred from ringside. Either that or he missed his flight. No, he's been barred from ringside, but it won't matter. He said when they assassinated Caesar, it wasn't just Marcus that betrayed him. Dramatic foreshadowing.
It was Bruce.
Well, I've no, you're not thinking of it. That's a different betrayal. But I was thinking, now, wait a minute. It was Brutus also. So was this going to be little Brutus that betrays Cody? You know, the little Brutus from the Dork Order?
What if it's what if it's Brandy? Oh, that would actually be great. A Brandy heel turn on Cody?
That may be the only thing that could turn him babyface.
Oh, that would be great. And she would have a ball. It would be the one time people enjoy Brandy, and she's actually having a good time, too.
Well, but we know it ain't going to be, and it ain't going to happen. But anyway, the next segment of this program, are you ready, Brian?
I think.
Like Mussolini and applesauce.
I wasn't ready. No, I wasn't.
Here comes CM Punk live, and the chants and the signs and the singing. JR leads in with nobody in pro wrestling is hotter than CM Punk. And then Excrement jumps in and does the t-shirt sell. And I know the producer had told him, yeah, get the t-shirt sell in there, but somebody wasn't thinking the Punk's entrance was not the place to sell the t-shirts. But anyway, he's in a serious mood, and he set the stage and led with Moxley to get the chant going. We're going to say this again later on when we talk about what he did on the Friday night show, but he is so fucking real. He sounds real. He appears real. He's not he's not just articulate, he puts emotion and or meaning and or inflection and or a naturalness into what he's speaking about.
He speaks like a real guy.
Yeah, like a real regular person, and like somebody that's coming up with what he's saying as he's saying it, like most people do when they speak, and not reciting something that he's memorized. And nobody else in the business, I don't think, could have done this particular promo. And in talking about Jon Moxley, in that 3 minutes, he made Moxley a bigger babyface than Moxley ever made himself. But you believe what Punk is saying, and this is what the WWE can't do. They can't have somebody go out and speak from the heart about a real moment or a real happening or a real situation, because not only is most of their talent Heyman could do it, obviously, a few of the guys, but nobody believes. The fans don't believe any of their WWE people are real. And they can't do this type of segment. Whether it's a work shoot or a shoot, WWE can't do this type of stuff. And then Punk did a seamless transition to Kingston and into his story that Kingston had interrupted him and offended him or disrespected him. And again, the Jerry Jarrett principle that he learned from Roy Welch, who learned wrestling in 1920. If you're going to be a worker, verbally, physically, or whatever, you tell them what they know to be true and what they can believe to be true as far as you can, because then when you take that right turn and start working them, they don't know where one ended and the other began, and it's seamless. So he starts talking about the story with Kingston. He shot down the heckler in the crowd. He told Eddie that he would be in St. Louis on Friday night to accept his apology for interrupting him. And also covered up the loophole he was going to offer to fill in the tournament, because that's obviously what people are calling for, but now not. Don't be boo me, boo Eddie, because it's his fault that I'm not doing it. He's at a different level verbally, and everything's logical. And it's not slapping you in the face with, why in the world would somebody say that? Or that wouldn't be something that somebody would say or do in that situation. What'd you think?
I think he may be the most effective promo in the entire business. This probably sounds a little weird, but I think you'll get it. He reminds me of Bruno in 1980, the way he could do a promo and just talk to the people. And like you said, you don't know where the line is, what's real and what's not real. And I think it's the same thing with Punk. He was the guy to come out there and talk about the Moxley thing. There was no one else, including Tony Khan, on that roster that would have done a better job. And he had the crowd in the palm of his hands. He's been there, and look, I know people have talked about the numbers for the shows. One thing that's undeniable, since Punk arrived, he's been the most over guy on every show. And the people go nuts for him. As soon as that music hits, and he has the ability to calm them down and get them to listen. Getting a wrestling audience to shut up and listen is a real talent. And I love, like an MJF, who is just a classic wrestling star doing classic, amazing wrestling promos with a modern tinge to it. But I think Punk is at a whole nother level because of the genuineness that he exudes. I mean, it would be crazy to think of CM Punk saying stuff and you're like, oh, that guy's a fucking liar. You never see that. Even if you disagree with the fucking guy. He says things that you believe he really believes. And I think he's the best promo in the business. And even when he was at his peak in WWE or even Ring of Honor, I always liked his stuff. And it was stuff I really liked. But then, it was like, okay, there are other guys I like too. He's one of the most special people in the whole fucking business right now. He's one of my favorite wrestlers in the whole business right now. Every time he's on TV, it's captivating. Whether it's a promo or a match where you can't figure out exactly what's going on, why is it so competitive, what's the story here? He's still paying dividends to AEW. Signing him was the greatest thing they ever could have done. And this promo was fantastic. He's the best promo in the business, period. Better than Heyman right now.
Oh, boy, I tell you
what, It's different. Heyman's more like, like an MJF.
There's where you get into Beatles or Stones. It's taste at that point. But yeah, and that's the thing is that it's so different now because there's nobody else that's real or even allowed to try to be. And so he shines through. It's and also the matches. Nobody is having logical, sensible matches. So when it's more refreshing. It's all he's doing is just doing everything right. And it works because nobody else does it anymore.
And he takes his time with the promos. If you notice, he's never rushing. There's never the feeling like, oh, he's trying to get everything out as fast as he can. He takes his time.
Which is sometimes what MJF needs to watch out for. He needs to let some things breathe and percolate and be a little more of a smartass in between because he just hits them with, it's great material, but it's like you're being bombarded with fucking filet mignon to the point where you can't fucking see it.
I will never complain about being bombarded with filet mignon for the record. But, I mean, those are two examples of two of the best promos in the business, but Punk is at a very special level right now, and the relationship he has with the fans is extraordinary, and there's nothing bad. You can't say anything bad about any of this. This was perfect.
Anyway, we followed up with, and I never thought I'd say this, I love Miro. I love Miro. If they'd have given me this Miro at the start, I would have never said a bad thing about Miro. He basically, again, another one of the pre-tapes where he warned God, he threatened God, he questioned God, and now apparently God is buckled and Miro's in the tournament because he's got to fill in for Moxley. So whoever, is he writing this stuff himself? If he is, it's fantastic, but
I think he is. There's no way someone's writing this for him.
Well, but English is his second language, as is obvious by, when he cussed me out on Twitter and said he was going to come on me like the wrath of God. So, he's doing better writing than the writers that have graduated major universities in English. So, but whoever is doing a great job, but he's delivering it well also.
He's one of my favorite guys in AEW, and we can't keep saying it every time, but it's such a shame the way he was used for the first, 5 months, 6 months, but...
Well, yeah, now I'm laughing about it, because now I'm like, this complete imbecile that was used as a joke and a job guy and palling around with goofs and underneath guys, and you thought and they're throwing video games around, and they had this underneath that somewhere. I laugh.
His promos are different. And they stand out, and they're perfect for him because he makes them work. Again, they're ridiculous, but it doesn't seem outrageous that he's saying it.
He's not winking at us.
No.
He's doing it. Everything in wrestling is outrageous or preposterous or whatever. What made it was the fact that whoever was delivering it looked like they meant it. And then you could say, instead of that's bullshit, he's crazy or whatever. And that's... He looks like he means this. I don't know where Pip Sabian is, but I hope he never comes back. Anyway, speaking of somebody that did come back, Officer Bar Brady. Poor Tony Schiavone must have been really worn out the past several weeks. His cardio's got to be tremendous for a man his age to do all those interviews. But Bar Brady was back just in time. I swear, I wish I knew how to put the clips up on Twitter, the GIFs or the GIFs or whatever, like the kids do. This was the funniest visual I have ever seen in my life. Folks, Officer Bar Brady was interviewing Adam Cole and the Hardley Boys in the back. And of course, Adam goes first. As soon as he finishes speaking, the Hardley Boys immediately go into comedy, and they got scared by Christian Cage and Dino Douche coming in. And they get in a fight, and they're in front of a bunch of equipment cases in the backstage area. And Marvez had been standing in the middle of them. So when Dino Douche and Christian Cage and the Hardley Boys and Adam Cole get in this fight, Marvez is in the middle, and instead of showing on his face, oh shit, I'm in the middle of a fight, and dropping the microphone and trying to cover up and run and get out of there, he just stood there he was transfixed, like he was mesmerized, with a blank look on his face, with his hands up in the air like he was being arrested, and let them all fight around him. Did you see that, Brian?
I did see that, yes.
Did I describe it somewhat correctly?
Yes, I believe he went to the Rick Knox School of Acting.
And then as soon as I had just written, my God, they aired this, because I thought it was a pre-tape, right? And then I realized, oh, they had no choice. It's live, because they fought out into the arena straight from that. And they're out in front of the people. And they have a sloppy fight in the back of the arena, which Brandon Cutlet was there also. And he ruined even the sloppy fight with the comedy with the spray can. Suddenly, Jungle Boy appeared as they were fighting on the floor and dove off the stage and cannonballed all of them. And Christian got super kicked, and Adam Cole, for whatever reason had been done to him, was crawling on his hands and knees down the ramp. And Dino Douche grabs one of the Hardley boys and chokeslammed him on top of Adam Cole. And then Jungle Boy got the snare trap on Cole and choked him out. Right flat there on the fucking ground. And then Christian, who I like Christian Cage as a person and as a talent. And I know that he and Edge used to do this, and I like Edge too, but the concerto, the stupid fucking concerto. They chokeslam a guy on top of Adam Cole, then they fucking choke him out unconscious. Then Christian puts a chair underneath Adam Cole's head while he's laying there face down, takes another chair and hits the chair that Adam Cole's head is on, trying to give us the impression that he just caved Adam Cole's skull in. But the problem with that, as I've mentioned every single fucking time that it's done, unless I see blood shoot like projectile diarrhea and brain matter and bits of bone splattering everywhere, what they just did was phony. And not only was what they just did phony, but then by extension, that means that Adam Cole laid there on purpose and let him do it. And besides that, as I asked Vince McMahon one time, when he had finished telling the instructions for Antonio Peña's Mexican champion to get beat like a job guy in 3 minutes flat on syndication, I said, why don't you just piss in his mouth while he's down there? Why didn't they just piss in Adam Cole's mouth while he was down there? And this is before the pay-per-view? Boy, howdy. All the heat that the Hardley boys and Adam Cole had that we wanted to see the baby faces get even. Well, we don't need to pay for that. We just saw it. How much more can you basically, you took a teammate of his like a sack of shit and hit him with his own teammate. Then you choked him out flat unconscious. Then you caved his head in and then stood over him and fucking emitted violent and vicious epithets. Should have pissed in his mouth. You missed one. What'd you think of this segment, Brian?
You know, it was like every Young Bucks match. Went way too long. They did way too much stupid stuff. It's like wrestling theater. In the middle of the wrestling show, there's the wrestling theater section, where a bunch of maladjusted kids get together and do a whole bunch of things, unnecessary amount of things, that just aren't very good. Look, I know a lot of you like the Young Bucks tumble salts and shit. They're just so lame. Everything they do.
The tumble salts? The tumble salts.
The tumble salts. Everything from their promos to their attempts to be heels to this. Everything they book just sucks. It's lame. I didn't give a shit about any of this. Adam Cole came to AEW to be a joke. We'll see if they can repair him. They did with Miro. We'll see if all of a sudden he has Roddy and Kyle and Bobby Fish next to him. Maybe that's a nice change, and maybe he could say, hey, you guys, I did all this stupid shit with you. I'm ready for my own team. And there you got a natural feud, but he hasn't done it for me in AEW so far. Not at all. And of all those guys that came in, obviously he's not as big a star as Punk or Bryan, but Adam Cole, more than anyone else, just feels like another guy on the roster with the Elite right now, as opposed to a superstar that came in there.
And that's what I was afraid of from the opening bell when they introduced him as a surprise on the pay-per-view and then promptly trumped him 5 minutes later, less than, with Bryan Danielson. So he was the second best debut in that 5-minute period. So now it is what it is. You know, I wish there was some way Brian, that you could repair some of the damage done to some of these wrestlers if there was a website where you could get like spare wrestler parts and repair your own wrestlers at home. All the damage that's been done to these wrestlers by bad booking and horrible creative and rotten matches. If you could just figure out a way to fix all that and get new parts for the wrestler and new parts for his gimmick like you can your car.
New wrestler parts. This is like the Frankenhooker of professional wrestling.
Well, that's right. But folks, until that happens, we can't fix wrestlers, but we can fix our cars. And the friends that we have at rockauto.com can get you every part you'll ever need to fix your own car or truck or, I don't know, maybe even motorcycles. What about do they fix hover rounds? Do they carry hover round parts at rockauto.com? What about those scooters at Walmart that fat people get on? Do they carry those parts, Brian?
I don't know. I have no idea if that's classified under the auto section of Rock Auto. I don't know.
Well, it's all the parts that your vehicle will ever need at rockauto.com. You want to save money. You want to use it for important things like mortgage, food, drugs, hookers. Why would you choose to spend 30 or 50 or 100% more for the exact same auto part at a chain store or new car dealership than you would at rockauto.com? And they're not going to screw you around if you're not one of those professional mechanics. Everybody gets the same price. Do-it-yourselfers, professional mechanics, people walking in off the streets trying to create robots, all the people get the same prices on these fine automotive parts. And folks, they've got everything from engine control modules to brake fluid to blinker fluid to even crankshafts for your crank. So you can go to rockauto.com. The website is unique and remarkably easy to navigate, and you can quickly see all the parts available for your vehicle. Choose the brands, the specifications, choose the prices you prefer. If you prefer to pay $2 for a $100 piece of business, try it. See how far you get. Don't let me stop you.
I don't know if that's the way it works exactly, but
well, they
great
can try
prices.
It.
Yes.
Yeah, just see how far you get with that. I said, why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? I didn't say you were going to get any shit for free. These people got to run a business too. You know, I've mentioned that's the problem with some of these people that let the maintenance on their car go until they're broke down on the side of the road, and then they inconvenience their family. And then I've told you what happens. Ends up the kids go to prison and the wife's out on the streets with a mattress on her back, all because you wouldn't take care of your car and keep it in running condition. Folks, go to rockauto.com right now and see the parts available for your car or truck and buy them from the reliably low prices and the amazing selection. Don't forget to pay for them, or somebody will be knocking on your door with a monkey wrench. But anyway, when you go to rockauto.com, write JCE in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you and you're somebody to keep an eye on. rockauto.com. Well, next up on the Dynamite Parade of Terror was what I was afeared was going to happen. I still think that somebody is sabotaging FTR. I'm not going to name any names, but somebody seems to be jealous that the best tag team in the world is on the AEW roster, and it ain't the Hardley Boys. I'm not saying they've allegedly had their pull taken somewhat away, but there's no reason for this match otherwise than if you want to say, okay, it's like a Hulk Hogan job to Billy Kidman. We're putting these people over, but we're not really. What good did this match do for FTR? They defend the AAA tag team titles that they've won instead of the AEW titles against Samurai Del Sol and Aerostar, which we don't know who they were in other lives. They're both masked guys. Were they the Lucha House Party? Or is it Masquerita Sagrada and Mini Vader, potentially? Because neither one of these guys could stand on tiptoes and clear the top rope. And when I saw that, and of course I like FTR's music, JR mentioned that music brings back memories. But I wrote at the start of this, before the bell had even rung, okay, how good are FTR? Can they get these guys to have a match that makes sense? Because I knew what we were going to see. And the answer FTR's the best, but they ain't that good, especially when somebody's sabotaging. I thought there was some reason for optimism when Aerostar did the 10 flips around the ring and then Dax just gave him the finger and basically flipped him off. There's my flip, motherfucker. And that was the best that FTR looked in the whole match. I know they had to feed the monkeys the peanuts, but they had to feed for and or stand around awkwardly for the gymnastics in the entire first segment of this match. And then they did a heat spot on old Aerostar for the break, like a good heel team should, right? That's a nice break spot. Oh my God, suddenly the babyface is in jeopardy. We'll be right back. The problem was they got all their heat in the break. Did you see? When they came back from the break, we have missed every bit of the match where FTR was in control and old Aerostar, or Ass for short, was doing dives again and nearly killed Dax when he dove off the top rope because Dax was trying to catch him and break the idiot's fall, and he went sideways and Dax almost got folded up underneath him. But the whole match, FTR had to stand there and either wait on the cheerleading routines or just weeble and wobble immobile while the other team got their shit together to do their vaulting. And it made FTR look bad. Even they fed perfectly for everything. The other guy's timing was off. And it just makes them look bad that they've got to cooperate with this fucking Cirque du bullshit instead of doing what they do. This was the phoniest looking FTR match that I've ever seen through no fault of their own. They tried to give these guys shit. They had to be told to give them that much, because no top team that's in an angle for the tag team title is going to fucking get their ass kicked by two midgets for the entire match on television before the pay-per-view. So this was an instructed hit. The one thing, they double backdropped one of the baby faces who landed on his feet and then did a split. But then the other guy was supposed to vault off the ropes over him and do whatever the fuck. But the guy he hadn't even left the apron yet. So FTR has to stand there while this guy just does a split like fucking Cheetah Rivera in front of him. And they're looking at it. And then the other guy comes off the top and they catch him and have to hold him forever like they're going to double powerbomb him, but not, so that the other guy that did the split can come off the top rope and drop kick him. It was just an exhibition of gymnastics and cooperative dance. They were kicking the shit out of FTR and doing it 100 miles an hour. And then finally, Dash pinned one midget with a roll-up and held the tights. So they needed to cheat to beat a job team. This was ridiculous. And as I say, it had to be a planned hit, because somebody had to instruct them to have this match and for the featured tag team to be cannon fodder for clowns. Change my mind, Brian.
I didn't hate it as much as you did, but there were some egregious moments. Like you said, they did the first spot where, for some reason, this idiot was trying to Frankensteiner both guys while jumping off the top rope. Seems impossible if you're 5'6". But then he did it the second time, and they had to stand there and hold him and wait. I mean, Omega just went through a break with Allen Angels. Why shouldn't FTR have a difficult time defeating these guys that have never been on TV before?
Well, after that, Nyla Rose demonstrated why she never gets to do a promo. And then we had the dinner circle in the ring for a promo about the 10-man, Minneapolis street fight? The dreaded Minneapolis street fight. I'm not dreading a Minneapolis street fight unless Nord, Hawk, Animal, and Rude are in it. But anyway, they start talking, and then here comes the American Top Team music, and out comes Lambert and company, and he's got some of the biggest MMA names in the business behind him. And, of course, Jericho gets the dipshit chant going. And then the people start chanting at Lambert, shut the fuck up. They don't like AEW being on national television, do they? Or they just don't care? Wait, which one do you think it is? The fans I'm talking about.
They probably aren't thinking about it being problematic, their chant. Probably ignorance.
Well, there's a reason for that, because nobody's told them, hey, don't say fuck, because it's going to get heat on us. When Sinclair started doing the Ring of Honor show, every night before the TV taping, I think you saw a time or two, I would go out, and that's when the Ring of Honor fans still listened to me before Sinclair's decision-making destroyed all my credibility. And I would say, hey, guys, we want you to have fun, yell, scream, cheer, boo, make noise, express yourself however you want, but don't say shit we can't say on TV. And they'd boo. I know, but we're going to have to post-produce it. You're going to overwork the TV crew that's already overworked. It's not their fault. We can't air profanity, and you might screw up your favorite wrestler's TV match. So just keep it as clean as you can. And they appreciated that because I was being honest with them. And for the most part, they kept it clean enough so that we could show it on television. You can't tell me, Brian, as a responsible person who's worked in a variety of businesses, is it out of the realm of possibility that one night a high-ranking Turner Network television executive turns on his network and hears people chanting, shut the fuck up, and it's live, so you can't really fucking do anything about it? The 7-second delay button, apparently nobody was on it. But it's hard to make that work anyway. Is it within the realm of possibility that executive might say, I don't want to hear fuck on my network? This low-class wrestling show.
I will say Tony Khan is someone who, if he went out there and asked the fans at the beginning of a taping to chill out with this stuff and did it in the right way, I'm sure they would listen to him. Also, there's a reason why they're chanting it during this segment. Because,
well, yeah.
Because this feud has been garbage, and Jericho gets lamer and lamer by the day, and I just don't think too many people want to see this. It just happens that it's in the middle of the show and it lasts way too long. Way too long.
Dan's material is getting old because now that everybody knows that it's not real, and he's admitted that, and I like Dan Lambert. I liked working with him down in TNA, and he's friends with Lashley, and I liked all those guys, but he's reciting it now. He's admitted that he only believes in part of the things he's saying because he's with AEW. That's the promo or the interview that he did with the website. They're seeing through it, and he's doing the same shit. It's not changing. He's falling into the comedy business too, and he's getting too fancy with his verbiage instead of being real. But it took quite a while to go through the records of all of his team members and their accomplishments and etc., so that the dinner circle could pick their opponents, which they picked Dos Santos, and you knew they were going to because Jericho's praised his debut. He's a natural. He might be a natural, but his debut was not Ronda Rousey's debut. And they picked Arlovsky, and Paige Van Zandt offered to be in it because she could take all 5 of them by herself, and then, Jericho will put it on your OnlyFans page. It was, well, with her husband there. Her husband's a shoot fighter, and he starts to step up and say something, and she says, I don't need a man to do my fighting for me, and he just shut right up. So he kind of... Anyway, they picked Dan Lambert to be the final member of the team, since he had said at the start of the interview that he was the number 1 member of American Top Team. And then he tried to get out of it, and it wasn't real believable when he tried to get out of it because we knew it was coming anyway, because you could see it coming. And it is what it is. But
it's terrible. That's what it is. It's terrible.
If they put Lambert in the match, then he does. I'm sure the AEW fans will enjoy seeing him get beat, which is probably what's going to happen. But it's a little, unless they're just finishing this particular thing up, I don't know how he retains his heat and comes back from getting beat in the 10-man, which is the only sane finish. So we'll see what happens.
And, we'll talk about the ratings briefly at the end, but the ratings keep going down, and I'm sorry, Jericho needs to be off TV for a while, and this Lambert thing isn't working, and no one's going to care about Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. And at this point, Jericho helps Hager, because no one gives a fuck about Hager, but Jericho's dragging down Sammy and Santana and Ortiz. And I just think this whole thing is terrible.
Santana and Ortiz have really stepped up and look good, and they talk serious, and Ortiz is not doing the funny shtick anymore. But they're stuck in this as secondary characters in this, this fucking group thing that Jericho's got going on. So he has a bunch of flunkies around him, and especially Sammy, as you mentioned. Anyway, Tony Schiavone was with Dante Martin, Leo Rush, Matt Sydal, and Lee Moriarty, who was the long-running nemesis of Sherlock Holmes back when Lee was a professor. For all you Arthur Conan Doyle fans out there. So now Sydal and Moriarty want a tag match with Dante and Leo. And that's basically what this was. It was not a good promo, but Dante Martin almost smiled. And you could see across his face the glimmer of a thought on his blank palette that he calls a face.
I like this. This is to me one of the most intriguing things in AEW right now. The Leo Rush, Dante Martin, Matt Sydal feud. They have lots of lower card guys doing garbage stuff. I like Dante Martin. Matt Sydal ain't bad.
No.
And Leo Rush, like I said, Richie from The Last Dragon, grown up. He has the same vocal style as Richie from The Last Dragon, but Leo Rush is great as a heel. Again, we'll see him in the ring now for the first time since that Battle Royal where he retired after. But I've enjoyed, and maybe it's the morbid curiosity of where they're going with all this, but out of all the things on this show I have a problem with, I've enjoyed the weird Leo Rush, Dante Martin dynamic for the past few weeks.
Well,
better than the Jericho segments, better than the Jericho segments, better than the Super Elite segments. This has been good stuff.
Shorter. Shorter is better. The tournament for the Hose title was next.
The TBS Championship.
But as you clearly saw, and now you can't unsee, someone on Twitter sent the picture out, the close-up of the belt, the way that they have stylized the TBS logo looks like HOS, Hose title.
It is one of those things that once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. Jamie Hayter versus Anna Jay, and they had a big schmoz afterwards where a bunch of the girls... So there's an angle after every match. There's an afterbirth, there's heat after, there's a big brawl, there's people running in. And that's why you can't remember from one segment to the next who ran in and did what to who, because it happens every time you look at the screen. And then Jane Cargill and Mark Sterling did a little pre-tape where Sterling recited some material with absolutely no feeling whatsoever. And then Jane remarked that she's going to rename the TBS belt That Bitch Show belt.
Yeah, that'll go over well.
Which Jim Ross's response as soon as they came out of it was, well, that'll sell.
That Bitch Show.
That Bitch Show. So anyway,
let me just say, because you went past it quick, I actually like the Anna Jay Jamie Hayter match.
I'm sure you did.
I think, and I know you didn't watch it, so you're really not going to judge it one way or another. I'll just say that I think Jamie Hayter carries herself like a little bit of a badass from the moment she walks down to the ring and the way she worked. And I thought she looked pretty good. And Anna Jay, out of everyone in AEW who's younger and hasn't done much yet or hasn't been pushed down everyone's throat too hard yet, Anna Jay has a world of potential because she's good looking, she's athletic, she seems to be trying to learn how to work, and the fans are into her. So out of everyone there, she may have the biggest upside for the future of anyone in that women's division.
What an endorsement. How much did she pay you for that?
I mean it. But anyway, I know you didn't watch it, so let's move on to whatever you did watch.
Moving on, MJF. As MJF is coming out, Tony Schiavone calls MJF, well, there's the big shithead. So now the announcers are cussing without need to. Remember 20 years ago, if somebody had done something horrible, Jim Ross would be pushed to the breaking point and he would finally come out with, well, that no good, dirty son of a bitch. And it meant something because he was pushed beyond all normal bounds, and whatever was going on or had been done, it was called for. It was in a moment of conflict. This the MJF's walking down to the ring, and Tony, well, there comes the big shithead.
But it happens every week, and to me, I think that's stupid. I hate Schiavone on this show. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people forget about WCW and they want to pretend like he was a good commentator throughout the 90s. He was garbage. And then he's come back, and it was nice to see him for a while. And I know Tony Khan feeds him a lot of the shit that he says. He has no insight into anything. He's just happy to be there. And then the MJF stuff. One week it's, oh, this prick. You're a commentator. Cut the shit. You didn't call Ric Flair a prick on TBS TV, did you? So I don't know. Schiavone to me is just worthless on commentary at this point. And I think it's so stupid and counterproductive for them to be the ones calling the heels, even if it is someone as despicable as MJF. For the commentators to be calling the heels names is completely stupid.
That's what I'm saying. And not only that, but and I mean, you know, you can call somebody a name without it being a curse word. And because I know that we've all got Tourette's now, and they've established you can say shit and son of a bitch and goddamn and whatever on TNT now, but it loses the impact like everything else does. Imagine if Rob Black hadn't done all that extreme porn before he did XPW, then people would still enjoy the movie of where the pizza delivery guy comes over and things happen from there. But now that's fucking bland because we've seen the fucking 72-man bukkake on the fucking Girl Scout. And all they do, the more angles they do, the more numb and immune you are to them. The more cursing, the more numb and immune and normal it becomes. They immune people to everything by doing it repeatedly. And then it has no impact. Anyway, MJF came out, cut a promo on Darby Allin, who was sitting slack-jawed in a dark corner of the arena with a blank look on his face. And MJF asked the fans why they booed him and cheered Darby, and then answered it's because MJF reminds them of people better than they are, and Darby is an incel outcast misfit who can barely string together 4 words, not good enough to be a normal functioning member of society. MJF has a way of saying the most basic truths in a very verbose and plain way. And the whole time while he was being called a glorified stuntman, Darby sat there with a blank face and stared at him. And MJF totally killed it. What a promo. But finally, Darby spoke and admitted that he was everything that MJF called him. It's the first. Could you imagine? And Jerry Lawler told Bill Dundee he was nothing but a sawed-off runt if Dundee to come out. Yeah, that's right, I'm just a sawed-off runt, Lawler, you're exactly right. But anyway, Darby also said at Full Gear he was going to keep his composure and have a wrestling match like MJF wants because he's going to let his anger out tonight, and he headed to the ring. So I know it was a cute line, but basically you've said, okay, for the show you got to pay $50 for. I'm not going to be mad and we're going to have a wrestling match. We're going to fight tonight for free on TV. So MJF leaves the ring as Darby is headed to the ring, but Sting comes out with a baseball bat. And how many umpteen people was there? Like 8, 10, 12 people wearing Sting masks?
There were a bunch, and they were skinny, they were big, they were tall, they were short. It just seemed like anyone they could find.
Yes. And they all blocked off MJF. As Spears and Wardlow came out and attacked the Sting mask people and got in a sloppy fight. And MJF and Darby started fighting in the crowd. And at least their shit looked better, but you can tell that nobody has any heat and nobody gives a shit really truly about anything because they were in the aisleway. If they had security people around them, they were hid well.
They did. And by the way, they did.
Did they have security?
Yeah, there were at least a couple of guys there, but they were hidden pretty well so that if you didn't know what to look for, you wouldn't realize it was security.
Well, exactly. And so, to my point, nobody tried to goddamn pop MJF once. Nobody tried to help Darby. Nobody got a fucking kick in the balls in. Nobody stepped on his toe. Nobody put the short right to the fucking jaw. As an experienced heel, I would have rather faced a gun at ringside inside the railing than gone out in the people because you would never see it coming. You couldn't tell which way, who was hitting you and from what direction. If you were in the aisleway by yourself or with a fucking baby face having a fight, you were going to lose it real quick. So now they just let them fight and spread out for them. So nobody cares. But finally, Darby comes out from under it and clotheslines MJF into the ringside area, and MJF ran back into the crowd, and they played some music, and it was over with. So, again, before the pay-per-view, the babyface gets the last word on the heel. Not only that, he tells the people that they're going to have a nice wrestling match at the pay-per-view because he's going to kick the shit out of him here, but then he didn't really kick the shit out of him like he'd want. I don't know what the fuck the logic here was. If you don't have a spot where the heel can get some more heat on the babyface before his vindication at the pay-per-view, don't have him get into a physical situation. If Darby Allin is not going to get his physical vindication at the pay-per-view, then he might have actually needed to fucking kick some more of MJF's ass here, but without all the Sting people and the Sting and the fucking Sting masks and the clutter that just confused the issue. It was a little busy, a little pitchy.
I'll say something about this segment in a moment, but in general, whatever MJF does next, we've seen MJF in a lot of feuds from Cody to now Darby. We saw the Jericho thing, him and Moxley way back. Whoever MJF feuds with next, let him get heat before he gets touched. MJF is getting thrown into pools or attacked or shit before a pay-per-view match every single time. He goes out there, he gets people to want to kill him, and then they kill him, and then you're supposed to watch the match. I think that's one of the big mistakes in general with MJF's booking. Don't let anyone touch him until people pay to see him get his ass kicked. Now, with that said, I think MJF's promo was fantastic here. I think the way they shot it added a lot to it. Because it wasn't from that same boring stationary angle. They couldn't, because of where he was. And it wasn't from in the ring. It was a shot as he was leaning over the ropes. I thought it looked great. I could even deal with Darby sitting there quietly not saying anything. Why does Darby have a mic? Where did he get the mic? I'd like to know that. Whatever was happening on that stage with Sting and the crew of weirdos and Wardlow and Spears, we saw almost none of, and we have no idea what the hell was going on over there, so I'm not sure. I thought MJF took a great bump over the barricade when Darby ran down to clothesline him, but like you said, there's no heat, but I can't expect there would be heat nowadays. These fans are not going to attack anyone. And if they jump the rail, it's to get attention. It's not to hurt someone.
Okay, here's a question for you, though. You're closer to this age group than I am. Is it a common thing now for people of Darby Allin's age to just sit there if somebody is calling them every name in the book and insulting their family and their friends and their dog and their house and saying horrible things? Do they just sit there and let those people do it these days?
I don't know if it happens much these days. That's the problem. Everyone's quiet and sitting off in the corner, hoping not to offend anyone.
Well, speaking of offending people, the all-time world champion at offending AEW fans was up next. Cody was back in the ring against Andre Oliolio, with Andre's assistant in his corner and with Arn Anderson, of course, serving his penance in Cody's corner. I mean, they started hot, and it was a fight. There's nothing wrong with either of these guys' work. The work is not the issue. They went for a few minutes, and Cody got shoved off the top to the floor for a break spot, and they went to the break. When they came back, Cody was starting to make a little comeback, or soon after made a little comeback to a cacophony of cat calls. And again, we've talked about it, the way that he's somehow managed to do this. Cody Rhodes has good wrestling matches, and the people hate him. And the Hardy Boys have shit fests, and these people love them. And when you actually think about it, secretly, the Hardy Boys are much more rotten people than Cody is, personally, really, but they just do a better job of hiding it. They went back and forth some more. Cody made the flip-flop and fly comeback, and they booed that. Andre, the heel, got the figure 4, and they cheered. Cody reversed it, turned it over, and they booed. The assistant popped up on the apron, and Arn nailed him. And Cody went for a dive on Andre, who was out on the floor, while the referee was dealing with the other guys. And FTR suddenly appeared from under the ring and held up their belts, and Cody dove into him. Now, that was a piece of timing. I don't know how they got him under the ring. But boom, he dives into the belts. FTR goes back under the ring. Andre rolls Cody in, hits him with a DDT, 1, 2, 3, and gets a huge ovation. I've never seen. I mean, it was. Even when they were booing Cena and Reigns, when they were baby faces, was it with this vehemence that they just, because this is a completely smart crowd and they just despise Cody at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the big difference, is that this is a smart crowd as opposed to a crowd where you had the dynamic of either smart fans or just mature fans booing Cena and children and women cheering Cena. You don't really have that breakdown of the audience fabric here with Cody.
The breakdown of the audience fabric. So FTR and Tully got in and hugged Andre and held Cody, so Andre give him a big boot and get some heat on Cody. Cash's punches looked good. He wasn't just windmilling Cody's right pectoral. And then Arn and Tully faced off. Because Arn gets in like, hey, what the fuck? And he and Tully start jawing, and I'm thinking, well, let's see something here. And then here comes the Lucha Brothers. And Tully bailed out. We didn't get to see anything with Tully and Arn. And now, again, the Lucha Brothers and FTR is what we've got coming up. So now it's the Lucha Brothers and FTR in a 4-way in the ring. And one of the Lucha Brothers and Dax got so discombobulated, they tried the same thing 3 times, and the Lucha Brother apparently couldn't get it. And I asked at this point, I wrote myself a note, why do FTR have luchadors hung around their necks like anchors? The complete diametric opposite style of pro wrestling of what FTR is, and they've got to work with them. And then Dax had to stand there for a double super kick, but fortunately one guy completely missed and went 3 feet behind his head. And Cash ended up pulling Dax out, and the heels whimpered off. So, what fucking angle did this whole mess intend to promote to begin with? Or how many, I should say? Because by the time it was over with, are we still promoting Cody? Is he mad at Malachi? Was Andre part of this? FTR mad at Cody? Lucha Brothers mad at FTR? What the fuck's going on here?
Yeah, who's Pac mad at now? He was involved with this last week, and now he's not there this week.
Pac's mad at the Lucha Brothers because they don't talk to him anymore.
Oh, I thought he was mad at someone else.
I just made that up because they were the Death Triangle, but now they don't associate. Maybe he farted in the car. They don't want to ride with him anymore. I don't know. But poor FTR. There's 2 Lucha teams in the company, and they had to fucking stand there and be made to look bad by both of them in the same television program. And all the heat that they got by fucking Cody was dissipated by getting run off by a sloppy comeback by the Lucha Brothers.
If Cody Rhodes can get past the fact that everyone doesn't want to watch him jerk off in the mirror, he could be the best heel in the entire wrestling business right now. Everything is set up for it. Everything. The fans already hate him, and they want to hate him more. They want to hate his wife. They want to reject him. If they're going to keep fighting this, I don't think it makes much sense at all. And I give it to you what you said earlier. I agree with you what you said earlier. Cody does have intensity in these matches. And his matches do have a lot of the elements I like. Now, Cody does a lot of stupid shit because he doesn't have instincts. Like a lot of stuff like he has to do that move where he runs to the top rope away from his opponent and dives backwards to catch them. I mean...
And they dive into it.
Yeah, enough of that. Just show some intensity. I think Cody looked great getting his ass kicked by FTR, like his facial expressions. All that stuff is the stuff he does well. The only thing he doesn't do well is book himself and realize how people see him. The more and more you see that entrance that goes on forever with the why? No one's asking for that. No one wants it. Other than Cody, is there anyone who thinks that's an effective or an appropriate entrance for Cody Rhodes? No. So they're going to play this for a while. They're going to fight the heel turn. I have to think it's Cody fighting the heel turn more than Tony Khan. Tony Khan, I think, would want Cody Rhodes as a heel right now.
He would get tire cutting heat. Mm-hmm. You've never been a heel unless the fans have sliced the tires on your car. And Cody Rhodes, even in 2021, could get tire cutting heat.
And it would be a lot easier because everyone could recognize that bus in the parking lot. It wouldn't be like, which car is Cody's? It would be like, oh, it's that big obnoxious bus. Let's get it.
And here's another thing that they used to like to do down in Louisiana. They would take glue and shoot it in all your car door locks.
That's brilliant.
And then they'd take lipstick and they would color all your fucking headlights and taillights and everything over so you couldn't see when you were driving down the road. Anyway, so next, Tony Schiavone was in the ring, an in-ring interview with Little Brutus. And apparently on Friday's Rampage, and I did not watch this part, I watched the good part, but not this part, Little Brutus of the Dork Order was going to go one-on-one with Adam Cole. But Brutus said, no, it's going to be him versus Budge, and kept calling Adam Cole Budge. He should change his name to Budge. And it's some joke from the Hardly Boys' YouTube show, comedy show that nobody watches, that they're carrying over to this. But so now Adam Cole is being mocked and having his name changed by a 5'2" job guy that looks like one of the great midget wrestlers in history, and is going to be wrestling competitive matches against him on the Friday show. So this was borderline cable access show level quality here. And then we got to our main event of the evening. The tournament for I don't know if they've said it's tournament for the number one contender, but the winner of the tournament gets a title shot, right, in the future. And this was the tournament that we mentioned, had it 8-guy tournament with 6 baby faces and 2 heels, and one of the heels was a Dork Order job guy that Moxley beat in a minute or whatever.
Right, and we did think Moxley was going to turn heel at the end of this.
Well, yes, because it looked like that. So now they had to get somebody else in to take his place, and Punk covered his loophole with why he couldn't do it. So Miro is in it because he threatened God over the issue. And it's Miro against Pockets. I've mentioned this before. I'm not going to dwell on it, but Jesus H. Christ. You've got a tournament for someone to get a shot at your world championship, and the fact that you put the company mascot in it to begin with just killed all the credibility of it, much less sending him to the second round, where now he went. I thought if this is a minute, it's okay, but they booked it as the main event of the TV program, and it went nearly 10 minutes. So I wasn't going to dignify this clown as an actual wrestler by sitting and watching and critiquing this like a match. But Miro won, obviously, but way too competitive against a joke for Miro's current push, for what's on the line, and giving people a substitution already. And you're going to just tell him we lost Pockets. He broke loose from his leash. He ran off. We can't find him. But it was the right result, but it was Miro against Pockets on national television. So your thoughts?
Right result. I really like Miro. He's one of my favorite guys in that company. Orange Cassidy's a joke. I've seen his entire act, so even if I liked it, I've seen enough of it. I will say briefly, the other day I was saying something to my 12-year-old daughter, and she gave me the Orange Cassidy thumbs up. And I immediately started giving her the Inquisition. Where did you see that? What made you do that? Like she came home with drugs. Why did you do that? And she said, I'm just being lazy. I said, I understand that, but is anyone doing that at school? Is this something that you've seen other people do? There's a wrestler who does this. She had no idea. I thought she was like, it was taking off. People were copying Orange Cassidy. No.
People have been doing a thumbs up for years.
Well, the lazy thumbs up. The lazy
thumbs up. That's probably just because she didn't really care enough to listen to what you were telling her.
Well, unfortunately, that may be true.
But anyway, that was the program.